Pointers in the second half. Spurs star Victor Wembanyama was 2 of 9 on threes. It's time for the Spurs coaching staff to tell the 7'4" Wembanyama to leave that three alone and do his work in the lane. Game 2 is Friday night in San Antonio. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm James Farr. $2.5 billion. Governor Gavin Newsom said it was there for fire survivors in Altadena and the Palisades. No strings attached. That was the promise. But the burning question is, where's it at? 18 months later, an NBC4 investigation came back with the numbers. The numbers don't answer the question, they deepen it. Where's it at? About $605 million has been spent, roughly 75% still not released. Where's it at? Roughly $14 million went to CHP overtime and ICE immigration protest response for crowd control. Not rebuilding homes, not rebuilding lives, but crowd control. Where's it at? Another $13 million went to the state health department for video campaigns while fire survivors waited. While families in Altadena are still trying to put their lives back together, still trying to get housed, this is the hope gap and it's real. Where's it at? Southern California Edison is still in court, still fighting liability tied to the Eaton fire, still not accountable. Where's it at? 18 months later, Governor Newsom, where's it at? Because the truth is free, but the lie can be very expensive. And right now, fire survivors want to know what happened to no strings attached. And I've been saying on this mic for the past 18 months, somebody or somebodies didn't do their job. Now it's documented. Governor Newsom, listen closely. You didn't do your job. You didn't keep your promise. You held up the bill. Now stop holding up the money. You said no strings attached. Instead, you played on the people's heartstrings. Where's it at? See, Governor Newsom, even at the French Laundry, if it don't come out in the wash, it's sure enough gonna come out in the rinse, and the rinse cycle is here. With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm James Farr, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. It's Thought Provoking Thursday, and we are in conversation with Atiba, former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators, Strategic Alliance Consultant, and President of Party Politics US, political contributor for BNC News, The Heat, In the Know with Mo, The Leslie Marshall Show, iHeartRadio, and GovExec, 96.3 WHUR, and the One America News Network. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and our weekly conversation. I think Atiba is muted. One of the issues that I want to discuss with Atiba in just a moment is all the way over in South Carolina. Atiba, welcome forward to the show.
Jesse, it's good to be with you.
It's a pleasure, brother. This, just 24 hours, just 48 hours off of the press, Cyrus Carmack Belton was a 14-year-old black teenager who was fatally shot in the back on May 28th, 2023 in Columbia, South Carolina by a convenience store owner, Chike Rick Chow. The case drew widespread national attention and sparked community protest. On June 1st, 2026, a Richland County jury found Rick Chow not guilty of murder, accepting the defense's argument of self-defense. Rick Chow falsely accused Carmack Belton of shoplifting 4 bottles of water from his Express Mart Shell station. Store surveillance footage confirmed the teenager did not steal anything and put the bottles back. Chow and his son, Andy, chased Carmack Belton from the store on foot for more than 130 yards. During the chase, Chow shot Carmack Belton in the back, inflicting a fatal wound. Atiba, your thoughts about the tragedy and the verdict in South Carolina?
First and foremost, Jesse, my thoughts and prayers. And it's like we say this all the time, but I mean it, with the family, because not just was this senseless, but it's just another case of vigilante justice, if you might want to say. But I don't know where the justice is, because Cyrus, in all accounts, at least from what I've seen, read, and talked to people in South Carolina, did nothing wrong, aside from walking into that store. And the other piece of the story that I find interesting are, one, finding out and learning more about South Carolina's laws as it relates to murder. They don't have second degree, they don't have third degree. So there are questions in terms of what was the judge's instructions to the jury, which may have made it difficult for them to return a guilty verdict. But also the fact that Chow also, years before, had shot 2 other people who actually did shoplift from his store. One of them, he opened fire on a vehicle of a shoplifter, and another one he actually did shoot. And in neither case was he ever convicted.
It seems increasingly that Black lives, particularly in the South, do not matter when you think about 4 bottles of water. I mean, does that rise to the nature of deadly violence as a reaction to 4 bottles of water? And it turns out, of course, the video footage confirms that Cyrus did not take the 4 bottles of water. In fact, he put the 4 bottles of water back, but that did not spare his life. 4 bottles of water. Atiba?
Yeah, in fairness, let's talk about what also came out in the case was that Cyrus did have a gun, but the video footage does show that he demonstrated and told them that he didn't have any water. He walks out of the store, and then they chased him. And they chased him for 130 yards. And Chow's defense was that Cyrus pointed a gun at his son. I don't think, or at least I have not seen anything, and I have not heard anything to show that there's any video evidence of this. But what we do know is that he was chased more than the length of a football field, and he was shot in the back.
And the tragedy is what it is. This is a conversation that's taking place all across the nation at this hour. Brother Cyrus Carmack Belton, age 14, shot in the back while retreating from a crime apparently that he did not commit in South Carolina. And of course, Atiba, there were African Americans on the jury, correct?
There were from what I understand, there were 7 African Americans on the jury, and the prosecutor was also African American.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. You're listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We're commemorating this 250th anniversary of the nation, but for the Negro, July 4th, 2026, like July 4th, 1776, is just another day. I'm Jesse Jackson. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward in our conversations with Atiba.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
You have something to say, and we want to hear it. KBLA Talk 1580 is engagement radio, not outrage radio. A place where your hopes, your frustrations, and your ideas are welcome 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Real talk, real people, real Los Angeles. KBLA Talk 1580, the station that sounds like the city looks. Tune in on your AM radio dial at 1580. Download our free KBLA 1580 app or listen live on our website at KBLA1580.com.
Unapologetically progressive.
Let's celebrate.
Y'all did it!
Loving each other, needing each other.
Hey, Los Angeles. KBLA Talk 1580 is turning 5, and we're celebrating in a big way.
Oh my God!
Join us Friday, June 19th, Juneteenth, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Beehive for our 5th anniversary bash and Juneteenth celebration. We're talking surprise celebrity guests, a special presentation, and a major announcement you will not want to miss.
I can't wait to hear it.
Plus, live music, dancing, games, and enough food and drink to keep the party going.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Of course, you're welcome to bring your own picnic basket, blanket, and lawn chair. And the best part, it's completely free. But here's the thing. You've got to sign up in advance. Space is limited, so don't wait. Head to KBLA1580.com right now and lock in your spot. Friday, June 19th, the Beehive, KBLA Talk 1580. 5 years strong, and we're just getting started.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
Yeah, man.
Do you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS like Mark?
I've been doing home remodeling for 30 plus years, but the economy crashed. I wound up losing my home, losing my job, and on top of that, owing the IRS a ton of money. I owed the IRS $114,000. It really, truly was the worst part of my life.
Then Mark found Tax Relief Advocates.
On news radio, I heard about TRA, and I thought, what's the worst that could happen? So I picked up the phone and I called them. When it was all said and done, TRA settled my $114,000 debt for $100, and I'm telling you, I was ecstatic. Could not believe it. Would recommend TRA to anyone.
If you owe 10 or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to the IRS, don't lose hope. Do what Mark did and call TRA for a consultation.
But TRA did. They gave me a second chance, and I'm forever grateful.
Visit TRA.com or call 800-575-8935. 800-575-8935. That's 800-575-8935.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on Thought-Provoking Thursdays. We are in conversation with Atiba. Atiba most recently hosted on Rising, a guest host on Rising, an American daily news and opinion web series produced by Washington, D.C.'s political newspaper, The Hill. Atiba, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Jesse, it's good to be here.
Atiba, a rare moment of bipartisan agreement. Democrats and Republicans joined together in limiting the president's war powers on the question of Iran. And I might add, Atiba, ironically, it was George Bush who extended the War Powers resolution to the war in Iraq. The Congress did not come together to limit the president's powers with respect to that particular conflict, ultimately granting George W. Bush the power for the conflict to proceed. But this is very unusual for the Congress of the United States to step in, first and foremost, recognizing that the president never had authorization in the first place. Atiba Madian.
Yeah, Jesse, this war, this thing going on in Iran, it really goes to show. We talk about this all the time about how our choices and in elected officials impact everyone and impact the world. This one is impacting us at the gas pump. It's impacting a lot of different things that are going on right now in the Middle East, and it happened so quickly. So not surprised that the Republicans took the position to vote with Democrats on this. What I think is more so to watch is what's going to happen over the next few weeks and what will the administration's response be to further action that's there. Supposedly there's more conversation going on in terms of a ceasefire, but then we also saw some things happen with Lebanon this past week. So it to me, a lot of this for me is confusing. I'm assuming that it's confusing to other people because while there was a strategy to go in, there does not seem to be a strategy to get out.
I found it particularly curious that when Secretary of State Marco Rubio spoke before the House of Representatives and a number of committees this week, the stated objective of the President of the United States for the conflict in Iran was to stop the proliferation and the development of the nuclear weapon by the Iranian state. But when Marco Rubio came before the committee and the Congress, stating the various reasons that the quote-unquote war is over and why we quote-unquote won the war, at no point in time did he ever mention the proliferation or the development of nuclear weapons in his remarks to the Congress. Atiba, I found that particularly curious that the Secretary of State's stated goals for ending the conflict are not the same as the President of the United States, when in fact the Secretary of State is the number one advisor to the President of the United States on these issues.
But as you were saying that, I had to laugh. There was this laughter in my head that, I may not remember why I pick up my cell phone, but I can remember things from 10, 15 years ago. And what I do remember is Secretary of State Powell going before the UN and talking about that Iraq had weapons of mass destruction. And that was the reason why we wanted to go into Iraq. And that's a place that we ended up staying for a very, very long time. I mention that because objectives can change. And I'm really also wondering too, why, and I'm going back to gas prices before I go back to the war, because I feel like that's impacting all of us. Why and how we haven't seen the relaxing of taxes on gas prices to bring the prices down, as well as the fact that the administration doesn't seem to be concerned. And in terms of with the Secretary of State, to his credit, I thought that he also did, whether we liked what he said or not, that he did pretty well as a cabinet member to speaking before members of Congress in terms of how he responded to questions. And I feel like he did a lot of deflecting. So we still don't have answers, but he definitely did not give answers to the piece in terms of why we said we went in to address the nuclear proliferation issue.
Atiba, so then therefore what was accomplished? I mean, I'm sitting over here as I listen to you trying to determine what was the point, other than to maybe curry favor with Netanyahu in Israel. And all in the same week, reportedly, he's been cursing out Netanyahu on a phone call and saying some fairly unkind things to the Israeli prime minister about his behavior, and even suggesting that if it wasn't for me, you'd be in prison, Mr. Netanyahu. And so it seems to be a fissure, some kind of separation, if you will, or growing animus between the President of the United States and our ally Israel in the region. And I'm just wondering if, in fact, Donald Trump who seems to be losing patience with everything that he cannot solve in 24 hours. He seems to want immediate results, immediate answers. And I think he, as well as Pete Hegseth, gave some thought and consideration to the idea that they could solve all problems with military might, and not without any sense of morality or any sense of recognition that the Iranians are a multi-millennia old civilization, and they can be as patient as necessary, including waiting out presidential administrations and Congresses in order to get their way. Do you find that somewhat curious, that the administration doesn't have stated goals, doesn't have stated objectives, and indeed is looking for a political way out in the United States while not being able to accomplish very much with respect to reducing prices on the Strait of Hormuz?
Well, we definitely have foregone any thoughts or in terms of policy using Theodore Roosevelt's policy of speak softly and carry a big stick, because we're not speaking softly. Every day I wake up more and more confused, which is, I keep trying to figure out and trying to think, Jesse, what is it that I can keep my eyes focused on? And my eyes are focused on November 3rd, because I don't see where anything that we can do can change the direction of this, aside from talking about the activities that continue to have no sense of direction. They just seem to be, I can't even say distractions because we're all impacted by them, but there doesn't seem to be any direction, no objective, just a matter of trying to continue to keep one crisis going after another to keep us distracted from the people who are actually creating the distractions.
Atip, if I can pivot for just a moment, it also looks and seems as though the president's $1.8 billion weaponization fund at the Department of Justice has hit a solid wall in the House of Representatives and maybe even in the Senate of the United States. Your thoughts on this second defeat of the President of the United States within the last week?
I'm not sure if I'm going to say that it's a defeat yet. And on paper, yes, it's a defeat. But there's also been nothing to me that's concrete that shows that once they get what they want from Congress, and that is getting some bills through Congress, that they won't revisit this. I think it's just something that we need to keep our eyes focused on and continue to watch and see what happens throughout the summer. But I do think also, though, is that the Republicans in Congress who know that they are up for re-election, I think they're also confused as to how they can address these things, because whether or not you're talking about Iran, and that's going to be still tied to affordability, whether or not it's tied to the conflict of a war that many people seem to disagree with, and whether or not you're looking at in terms of what's going on with this fund, that all of this seems to have ties to a certain demographic of voters that I hope to hear us talk more about during the summer months, and that's independent voters who I don't think are very supportive of any of this.
I think it's interesting that that the fund has opened up amongst African Americans, many in the community, on the questions of reparations, because the $1.8 billion is such a public display and a public reaction to what took place in what Donald Trump calls a weaponization, a victimization of those who entered the Capitol on January 6th, protesting the presidential election and the counting of the Electoral College. African Americans have in return saying that, hey, maybe we don't need Congress. Maybe we don't need the Supreme Court to move forward with the idea of reparations for African Americans. I actually think that our discussions in our own community, a door that Donald Trump has opened, contributed to the idea that Republicans in the Congress said, listen, you are opening up a door that none of us want to crawl through. And therefore, in some, large measure, they backed off of the reparations for January 6 victims because of the demands that were coming from many Americans who have been aggrieved, disenfranchised, locked out, discriminated against, disproportionately incarcerated, and the victims of the peculiar institution of slavery.
And Jesse, I feel like every day I'm having a conversation with someone who's asking me, a lot of times because they're seeing me wear a shirt that says midterms effing matter, but are asking me about my thoughts on the election. And one of the things that I continue to say and impress upon people is that as much as I'm telling people to vote, I'm also asking people, don't forget how we got here. We got here because people became apathetic about their votes or disenchanted about voting. And a lot of that disenchantment was because there were elected officials that kept making promises of doing something once they got into office that they never saw happen. I mean, just most recently, I remember people asking, well, about the voting rights legislation that with the John Lewis bill, and then asking about police brutality and how that would be addressed. And we didn't see the movement or the passage of legislation to address those two particular issues. And so as a result, if you continue to vote and you don't see any action come of it, then you can become disenchanted. What I would say here is that not only is our vote important, and not only are there other people that I believe, not just our community, that are watching and seeing the things that are happening, but they're also seeing is what power can do. And so if I say something like, hey, you know what, I'm actually paying attention to what the president is doing. I'm paying attention to what the president is doing to make sure that I'm empowered and I'm equipped with the information to say, when and if you all get back into office, I'm going to hold you accountable and say, you need to do X, Y, Z. And the moment you tell me you can't, then I'm going to go back and say, well, if he did it in this direction, why will you not do it? And it's up to us to make sure that we keep our foot on the gas to make these things happen, because too often we've been told, well, we can't do it. We need to have bipartisan support. We need to do X, Y, and Z. Well, we're seeing this all happen without bipartisan support. So why can't you do it when you have the power?
I know that we have about a minute and 30 seconds before we come forward for our long break, but I did want to ask you the question. Yes, midterms effing matter. That's what your t-shirt says, and that's the campaign that you're leading, that we should be voting. Obviously, Karen Bass fared well in the initial campaign for mayor of Los Angeles. Obviously, Javier Becerra is presently leading in the potential nonpartisan election in the state of California, but still, the numbers seem to preliminarily suggest that only 30% of the people of the state of California turned out and voted. Given all that's at stake in 2024, is 30% an acceptable number to you, Tiba?
Absolutely. It should. The only acceptable number for me will ever be 100%. And if we don't feel that it's important to vote, then two things can either happen. One, we will continue to lose the things that we want in terms of freedoms, or two, there will be someone who will be responsible and morally there who will say, we're going to pass legislation to make it a requirement that everyone has to vote.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KVLA Talk 1580. We are in conversation with Atiba. When we come forward, we're going to talk about someone who's seriously unqualified to be holding office. The nominated Director of National Intelligence has no knowledge whatsoever about about intelligence agencies or law enforcement. And yet Donald Trump, a Donald Trump sycophant, is being asked to serve in a temporary capacity and maybe even a permanent capacity at the Senate and the Congress of the United States. Don't do something about it. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We're in conversation with the team, but more we come forward right here on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Congressman and gubernatorial candidate Byron Donalds of Florida is praising the passage of a Florida property tax relief bill
to really help working families and seniors on fixed income.
The proposed constitutional amendment will go before voters in November and would raise the homestead exemption to $250,000 over 2 years. A jury has been seated in the nationally watched Texas murder trial of Black teenager Carmelo Anthony. He's charged in the 2025 stabbing death of Austin Metcalf, who was white, at a Frisco track meet. Civil rights leader Dominique Alexander criticized the jury selection, saying no Black jurors were chosen. And the Prince estate is releasing 10 previously unheard Prince songs. The new collection, Timeless, features music recorded throughout his career from 1977 to 2016. The announcement follows the release of Stone, an unreleased track from 1995. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Over 1,000 career strikeouts. He's a force on the mound. Join the Dodgers for Tyler Glasnow Starter Series Bobblehead Night, June 6th versus the Angels. The first 40,000 fans get an exclusive Tyler Glasnow bobblehead presented by Blue Shield. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotions.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The New York Knicks continue to put up some impressive numbers. 12 straight playoff wins, 7 straight on the road. In the final 2 minutes and 15 seconds Wednesday night in San Antonio, the Knicks held the Spurs scoreless. An 11-0 run. The Knicks pulled away late the fourth quarter for a 105-95 win in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. The Knicks had not lost a game in the postseason since April 23rd, when they were down 2-1 to the Atlanta Hawks in the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Knicks guard Jalen Brunson dropped 19 of his game-high 30 in the second half. Here's a couple of bad numbers for the Spurs. They made only 2 of 19 three-pointers in the second half. Spurs star Victor Wembanyama was 2 of 9 on threes. It's time for the Spurs coaching staff to tell the 7'4" Wembanyama to leave that three alone and do his work in the lane. Game 2 is Friday night in San Antonio. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Turn the dial to where the truth lives. This is KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
I'm Reverend Gerald, the life coach. Is someone you love struggling with addiction and mental illness? Is improving your family's health important? Want to leave a legacy that your family can grow? Are you ready to enhance your perception of life experiences? Then wake up weekends at 7 a.m. with Urban Family Focus and get the wisdom, opportunity, resources, and motivation to live your best life. Join the conversation on Urban Family Focus Saturday and Sunday at 7 a.m.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. It's high time that we say the quiet part out loud about what we consider a disgrace, an absolute disgrace to the people of South Los Angeles. Destination Crenshaw, or as I call it, Procrastination Crenshaw, was supposed to be a 1.3-mile celebration of Black Los Angeles. Pocket parks, commissioned art, a cultural corridor along Crenshaw Boulevard, stretching from our studios in Leimert Park down to Nipsey Hussle Square. It was set to complete in 2022. That's right, 2022. We are now in 2026, and the Crenshaw community is still waiting. A grand opening was announced for February 2024. That date passed with not a single artwork installed. Then we were promised that construction would be completed by the end of 2024. That date came and went. Our understanding is that as of last fall, the 8th Council District Office was still scrambling to raise additional monies just to restart the project, which has been paused again and again. But here's what makes my blood boil. City officials had the nerve to tell this community the delays are, quote, a necessary inconvenience, close quote. A necessary inconvenience? First of all, who are you talking to? Second, go tell that to the Black business owners who have been coping with construction chaos, breathing dust, enduring years of road closures, and the scarcity of available parking, confronting unsanitary conditions, losing customers and revenue, all while the project they were promised still sits unfinished. They wouldn't let a project sit this long in any other part of this city. And for what it's worth, our elected official just happens to be the president of the LA City Council. Meanwhile, the city is laser focused on sprucing things up for the World Cup and the Olympics Please, if this corridor were in Brentwood or Beverly Hills, it would have been completed on time, on budget, and on the cover of every magazine in town. The Crenshaw community deserves better. They deserve the truth, and they deserve what was promised to them. Now, right now. Not when it's convenient, not when the cameras are rolling for the Olympics. Now, this isn't incompetence. This is a pattern. And at some point, neglect becomes a decision. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We're in Thought-Provoking Thursdays and in conversation with Atiba, the former Deputy Executive Director for the National Black Caucus of State Legislators. Atiba is now championing a campaign reminding voters all across our country that midterms effing matter. He's doing everything within his power and on every platform that we can muster to talk about the importance and the need to vote. Atiba, why don't you share with our listeners before we go to the new Intel chief, without any qualifications to do the job whatsoever, how the effort is going and what your sense is it's going to take to turn people's interest to the midterms to get this job done for the democracy?
Thank you, Jesse, for that. And, thank you for not just that introduction, but thank you for everything that you're doing and so many others around the country are doing. And what we're doing is is part of a collaborative effort. It's part of what I believe, especially during the summer and early fall months, that so many more people are going to be doing in terms of registering people to vote, making sure that people are checking their registrations. And what we've done is created a website that allows people to do all those things. But we're not saying that you just have to come to our website. We're just saying go to a website and find out whether or not you are registered to vote. If you have been removed, make sure that you get yourself back on the voter rolls. Know where it is you're going to vote. If you're not registered to vote, please register to vote. This is an election, and we've heard this over and over again for years, that voting is so important, that you have to vote like your life depends on it, or that this is the most important election of your lifetime. Well, all those things and more. But I think also every election is that important. And we've got to do other things too, and that we hope to do other things too, to educate people, because we just assume that people understand that when they go and vote, that's it. It's not. We have to stay engaged in the whole process throughout. We have to teach each other so that we understand that if you don't like something that's going on in your city, then go to a city council meeting. Or if you don't have time to go to a city council meeting, you can watch it online. But the main thing is to understand and know what's going on, who your council members are, who your judges are, who your mayors are, who all these different elected officials. It's not just about the president of the United States. It's not just about the Congress. It's not just about the state legislature. Politics, as Tip O'Neill said, is where the rubber meets the road. All politics are local. And so all of us have to be engaged in this process, because the democracy doesn't run as we see when we're not actively engaged in the process.
Atiba, what is your website? How can we get in touch with you? How can we get the wonderful t-shirt, Midterms Effing Matter? And how can we be supportive of your efforts?
The website is just as you just said, midterms, FING matter.com. If you want, please go to the website. If nothing else, just go and check out and see what's on the website. But if you want to wear the message and you want to share the message because you're wearing a shirt, or you're drinking a cup of coffee, or on your hat, or however way it is, we have different items that are on the website, and those, and by supporting the work that we're doing, our goal is to engage with voters, and we want people to post videos, post pictures, not just about wearing the shirt, but about why this midterm election is so important to you. And we hope to also work to help people get out the vote. I primarily would like to focus on working to make sure that we can help as many seniors and as many people from the disability community get out to vote, but we need to work and help everybody get out to vote. And I encourage everyone, each one take one. You know, when you go to vote, take somebody with you. And if you're taking someone with you, ask them to bring somebody with them. Each one of us, the same way that we see the images and we commemorate in March, the Selma March, so that we gain the right to vote, is the same way that I hope to see that we're voting all over this country in droves. You can early vote. In some cities and states, you can still mail in your ballots. But whatever you do, please vote. And so the website is midterms.matter.com.
Pete Hegseth, the Secretary of War, Secretary of Defense, recently, within the last week, fired, if not demoted, if not removed from a list, Black men and women, and yes, white women who served the military for 25, 30, or 40 or more years, who were in line for promotions within the Pentagon simply because they were Black, simply because they were female. And now the President of the United States has asked the former intelligence official, Tulsi Gabbard, who has now resigned from her position. In fact, I think she was fired, that a gentleman by the name of Bill Pulte will be hired as the interim chief of the National Intelligence Community. The new intel chief is a partisan warrior who has the president's ear, according to many sources. Former intelligence officials worry that Bill Pulte will have access to a treasure trove of intelligence and seek retribution against Trump's political enemies or try to justify federal intrusion into upcoming elections. The partisan warrior named to serve as the country's top intelligence official is part of a small circle of trusted allies who won President Donald Trump's confidence by taking swift action against his prominent Democratic critics, according to three people with knowledge of Trump's decision. Bill Pulte, the administration's chief housing regulator, who is due to take over as acting director of national intelligence by the end of the month, as Trump's ear, shares his sense of urgency, and is a regular presence at the White House and at Trump's properties in Florida, the people told NBC. Trump, and I quote, is always with Pulte and always saying we're running out of time to get things done, one of them said. His favorite statement in the presence of the President of the United States is we're running out of time to get things done. That cannot be good news, given that Mr. Pulte is primarily known for seeking retribution against President Trump's critics. Your thoughts on Donald Trump hiring someone who is totally unqualified to be the director of national intelligence, juxtaposed against the African-American men and women, and even white women that he removed from under Pete Hegseth, that were removed from the promotions list at the Pentagon.
You know, Jesse, I try real hard not to say these people's names, so I'm not going to say these names, but I'm going to say blank Holmes. Yeah, I think that'll work. But just blank Holmes, and if you like, to look up his name and Holmes. You know, these people are fighting, and they feel as if by what they're doing, that they are exciting their base, but their base is getting smaller. And they have to do these things because some people don't want to go to jail. You know, there have been so many laws that have been broken. So, you know, I just say to people, just take notes and look at what is it that we can affect. It's like, for instance, last night I was watching the Knicks against San Antonio Spurs. Great game. I'm watching it as a fan. I can't affect anything on the game except for watch it and then keep watching it so that hopefully they keep showing us more games. But I bring that up because unless you're on the bench and can ask the coach to put you in the game, you can't affect anything with that. But what you can do is watch the games. Where we can do with voting is different. We can watch and see what they're doing. We can vote, and we can vote for people. And I keep using this term, vote in numbers too large to manipulate the outcome, because what you just said, they're running out of time. And I won't say that we have a lot of time, but I'm saying that we have time to organize to do this stuff. But ultimately, we can continue talking about the problems, or we can figure out how to fix them. But remember, blank homes.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We're in conversation with Atiba. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
While you're stuck in traffic, we can at least bring you up to speed on the news of the day. You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. only on KBLA Talk 1580.
Do you have 3 ex-wives and your current trophy wife wants a life insurance policy 3 times the size of the policies you had to purchase for your previous mistakes? If so, you need to call Big Lou, a term provider, 800-345-2789. Big Lou is intimately familiar with your problems, and if you're 50 or 60 years old and in reasonably good health, a $1 million policy should only cost about $100 to $200 per month. Big Lou may have a solution for your previous policies as well. You may even save enough money to lighten the load on your new $1 million policy. Remember, call Big Lou. He's like you, except he's only on number 2. Call Term Provider at 800-345-2789. That's 800-345-2789 for $1 million in term life insurance that you can live with. Call Big Lou at 800-345-2789.
Yeah. The California Crusader newspaper would like to thank all of our subscribers for their support throughout the years, proudly serving the South Los Angeles and South Bay areas for more than 40 years. The California Crusader is a multicultural, Black-owned, adjudicated newspaper that focuses on providing newsworthy information to the people in our community. We're constantly looking for ways to assist businesses in our community to connect with our subscribers. We provide low-cost, effective ways to promote your business with our reasonable and affordable advertising rates. You can participate by suggesting, sharing, and submitting your stories on the California Crusader newspaper Community Share Facebook group page, or visit our website at cal-cruise-news.com. That's calcruisenews.com. Then click on the Submit Now button located on the top right corner of the homepage, or text CCN to 42828. Again, text CCN to 42828. The California Crusader newspaper, working together to build a better community for our future. Subscribe today.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580 is connecting you with services and solutions. Domestic violence and family violence is when someone in an intimate or family relationship tries to gain or maintain power and control over another through a wide range of abusive behaviors. Every single act may amount to abuse. Abuse can take on various forms: psychological and emotional, physical and economic, and sexual abuse. The Genesee Center Incorporated is a nationally recognized nonprofit domestic violence prevention and intervention organization, housing women and children from 30 days up to 2 years through emergency and transitional shelters. The Genesee Center also provides support services like mental health counseling, life skills classes, computer training, job referrals, after-school programs for children, field trips, tutoring, and comprehensive direct legal services. If you need help or you'd like to donate or volunteer, call the Genesee Hotline, 1-800-479-7328. That's 1-800-479-7328, or visit Genesee.org. Everyone has the right to be safe. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Indeed presents hires you can't afford to get wrong, like nuclear reactor safety expert.
I disabled the backup cooling system. It was making such an annoying noise. You heard it, right? It was like,
We're on the countdown to core failure.
And you're saying we don't want that?
This is a job for sponsored jobs.
This is what happens when you don't sponsor your job on Indeed. Next time, get matched with quality candidates with Indeed sponsored jobs. Visit Indeed.com/hire now and sponsor your job today.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. We are in conversation with Atiba. Atiba is our regular contributor on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, and Atiba has begun a new national campaign to get our people and people who think like we think out to vote. He calls it midterms effing matter. Enough talk, enough complaining. We have to turn out and we have to vote. Atiba, give us the website where, once again, our listeners can join the movement that you are leading.
Thank you again, Jesse. It's midterms, FING matter.com. And it's called that because they really, really matter. And I wanted to send a shout out to one of our listeners, Barbara Jean, who sent me a picture of her shirt as well as her mug. So thank you so much for that support. And we appreciate every bit of support that we can get, and everything that we are doing now is working to make sure that we motivate and get people inspired to go and vote.
Thank you, Barbara Jean. We certainly appreciate that. Let me ask you a question. So we began the conversation earlier talking about turnout in the primary. Of course, that's not the general election, and a significant amount of your thrust is for a general election turnout that really allows the democracy to fully express itself in light of all that's taking place. So I don't expect necessarily a 100% turnout in primaries where Democrats and Republicans are engaging in intra-party struggles, fighting over the direction within their party. And so, 100% of the vote's not going to vote for the Mayor Karen Bass. 100% of the vote is not going to vote for her political opponents in the race. 100% of the vote is not going to vote for, let's say, a Democratic nominee for governor of the state. But when the party comes together in the general election, again, your focus, you're aiming for the largest possible turnout as our response collectively to where we are going as a country and where we are going as an American people. My question for you is, Atiba, how do you measure the enthusiasm in the primary process before we get to the general as to whether or not that message is being heard and that it is going to be an effective turnout? Because as you know, the day after the election in November, it's too late if we don't have some sense of what we're doing in the interim period.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be honest, we start going into like a cold conversation about primaries. That's going to be, we'll be here for another hour because I do think that there also ends up being some confusion. And not everybody knows when the primaries are. And in some cases, as I talk to elected officials, not every elected official who's an incumbent actually wants everybody to vote, which is
I got people who come up to me every day saying, I'm looking forward to voting for you in November. I'm like, bro,
where were you?
That election was in March. What are you talking about? November. I'm not going to be on the ballot, partner, because you didn't vote, man.
Right. Let's see if they write you in, Jesse. But the thing is that that's again where it's so important in terms of voter education. And it's so important that we, even for me, someone who works with elected officials, I always tell people that I work with that don't assume that elected officials know everything, because they have so many different things coming at them daily. That's the same way that I address voters. Let's not expect that every voter knows everything, but let's try to make sure that we make it as easy for them to understand. And for instance, here's something that to me is very easy to understand. In the 2024 elections, 75 million people voted for the vice president, Kamala Harris. 77 million people voted for the president, Donald Trump. But the number that stands out to me the most, where I feel like is, how do we get to this, how do we make this low-hanging fruit, is the 89 million eligible voters who did not vote. That's a pretty high number. So more people did not vote than who voted for either one of each of the candidates. So 150 million people roughly voted in the election, but 90 million people roughly did not vote.
Yeah. And so I don't want to call these people independent, because whether you're Democrat, Republican, liberal, or conservative, independents tend to vote one way or the other for the existing population of people who do turn out. There is this category out here, this 89 million people, this 90 million people who don't identify as Democrat, Republican, Independent, or anything. They're eligible to vote, but they don't participate. And if they haven't seen enough in the last year, year and a half or so, if they can't see the inherent contradictions in the magnificent words of the Declaration of Independence 250 years ago, and the structural inequality that's on the ballot, including affordability in 2026, 250 years later, I simply don't know what to do. And I said the other day, just before we get to your word of hope, that I can't imagine a scenario where Democrats can win the White House without the 54 electoral votes in the state of California. I just can't imagine a scenario. Now, there are other states where we might pick them up, but California is central to that coalition. It's central to getting to 270 votes. And when we're talking about a 30% turnout in the primary election, of course, they're still counting votes in many of these races, but it's not expected to exceed 30% of the vote. That's deeply troubling for our democracy, and it's deeply troubling for us nationally across the country. Atiba, a final word of hope.
Well, my hope is that I often think about the fact of my ancestors who worked in the fields and those who were thankfully freed 65 years before slavery ended. And the thing that I think about when from both perspectives, those that were enslaved and those that were free, is that I don't believe that they were ever saying, I want to be a free Black man, I want to be a free Black woman. I think they just wanted to be a free human being. And I think that when we talk about these issues that are confronting of us, is that it's up to us to recognize within us our human side, because that's what we keep asking other people, see me as a human being. And so my hope through all of these things is that we find better ways to identify with each other and our humanity, because if we want to address all these different issues that are going on, whether or not it's sexism or racism, all these different things, I don't believe that we can address them without getting back to our humanity. And in doing so, that the hope is that as people who are citizens of this country, that we still also look at each other and recognize each other, that we're just Americans and all of us are just looking for a piece of this apple pie, not the crumbs, but the apple pie. And my hope is that we all vote in numbers that are too large to manipulate the outcome. And we sit down with people that we don't always agree with and find ways to come together, work together, and recognize that whether you like me or not, we are all in this together.
Thank you, Brother Atiba. I appreciate you.
Appreciate you.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Coming up next, Johnny Mack in the World House, along with Dr. Nee Cordelai-Corte, our A More Perfect Union host in the evenings, direct from the White House. They both returned from Cuba recently on a humanitarian mission. We'll get more insight from both of them on what's taking place in our neighboring island. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. Black Congressman and gubernatorial candidate Byron Donalds of Florida is praising the passage of a Florida property tax relief bill
to really help working families and seniors on fixed income.
The proposed constitutional amendment will go before voters in November and would raise the homestead exemption to $250,000 over 2 years. A jury has been seated in the nationally watched Texas murder trial of Black teenager Carmelo Anthony. He's charged in the 2025 stabbing death of Austin Metcalf, who was white, at a Frisco track meet. Civil rights leader Dominique Alexander criticized the jury selection, saying no Black jurors were chosen. And the Prince estate is releasing 10 previously unheard Prince songs. The new collection, Timeless, features music recorded throughout his career from 1977 to 2016. The announcement follows the release of Stone, an unreleased track from 1995. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Over 1,000 career strikeouts. He's a force on the mound. Join the Dodgers for Tyler Glasnow Starter Series Bobblehead Night, June 6th versus the Angels. The first 40,000 fans get an exclusive Tyler Glasnow bobblehead presented by Blue Shield. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotion.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The New York Knicks continue to put up some impressive numbers. 12 straight playoff wins, 7 straight on the road. In the final 2 minutes and 15 seconds Wednesday night in San Antonio, the Knicks held the Spurs scoreless, an 11-0 run. The Knicks pulled away late the fourth quarter for a 105-95 win in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. The Knicks had not lost a game in the postseason since April 23rd, when they were down 2-1 to the Atlanta Hawks in the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Knicks guard Jalen Brunson dropped 19 of his game-high 30 in the second half. Here's a couple of bad numbers for the Spurs. They made only 2 of 19 three-pointers in the second half. Spurs star Victor Wembanyama was 2 of 9 on threes. It's time for the Spurs coaching staff to tell the 7'4" Wembanyama to leave that three alone and do his work in the lane. Game 2 is Friday night in San Antonio. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
All I need is one mic.
With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm James Farr. $2.5 billion. Governor Gavin Newsom said it was there for fire survivors in Altadena and the Palisades. No strings attached. That was the promise. But the burning question is, where's it at? 18 months later, an NBC4 investigation came back with the numbers. The numbers don't answer the question, they deepen it. Where's it at? About $605 million has been spent, roughly 75% still not released. Where's it at? Roughly $14 million went to CHP overtime and ICE immigration protest response for crowd control. Not rebuilding homes, not rebuilding lives, but crowd control. Where's it at? Another $13 million went to the state health department for video campaigns while fire survivors waited. While families in Altadena are still trying to put their lives back together, still trying to get housed, this is the hope gap and it's real. Where's it at? Southern California Edison is still in court, still fighting liability tied to the Eaton fire, still not accountable. Where's it at? 18 months later, Governor Newsom, where's it at? Because the truth is free, but the lie can be very expensive. And right now, fire survivors want to know what happened to no strings attached. And I've been saying on this mic for the past 18 months, somebody or somebodies didn't do their job. Now it's documented. Governor Newsom, listen closely. You didn't do your job. You didn't keep your promise. You held up the bill. Now stop holding up the money. You said no strings attached. Instead, you played on the people's heartstrings. Where's it at? See, Governor Newsom, even at the French Laundry, if it don't come out in the wash, it's sure enough gonna come out in the rinse, and the rinse cycle is here. With the KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm James Farr, and as always, we welcome your feedback.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We are entering the World House with Dr. Johnny Mack, a social entrepreneur, a scholar practitioner with expertise in subject matter areas, including peace, conflict, and social change movements. He's traveled extensively throughout the Americas, Africa, Asia, Europe, and the Middle East, working in the fields of peace, development, conflict, and nonviolent social change. Dr. Mack's seminal work, After Confrontation, Then What?, challenges the putative logic of nonviolent social change theory and practice. Particularly, he rearticulates nonviolence beyond traditional understanding of nonviolent struggle as principally nonviolent resistance. Dr. Mack, welcome home to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, Dr. Mack, and to the World House with none other than yourself, Dr. Johnny Mack.
Hey, Jesse, it's just great to be here. I missed being here last week, and my apologies. The internet connection, as you might imagine, was not what we had hoped it would be, so we had a difficult time. But it's great to be back. Thank you.
We are going to turn our attention to exactly where you were last week in just a moment. I was a little worried about you when I, of course, had expectations that we might make the connection, but I'll leave for in just a moment after my introduction of Dr. Nick Quarterly-Corte, the quest that both of you were on this past week. Dr. Nick Quarterly-Corte is a political journalist, Pepperdine University professor, and prominent convener in the fields of dialogue and social change. Throughout his career, he's been featured on various media outlets, including The Oprah Winfrey Show, MSNBC, CNN, CBS News, News Nation, Sirius XM, The Griot, as a daily news anchor for Fox Broadcasting and Fox Soul. Now he serves as host of and White House correspondent for A More Perfect Union right here on KBLA Talk 1580. Dr. Nick Quarterly-Corte, Dr. Q, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show.
Hey, Jesse Jackson Jr. Hey, Johnny Mack. Hey, everybody.
Hey, Dr. Q, before we get into this, and I'm going to do this several times over the course of the hour, what times are you on KBLA so our listeners can, of course, join your show throughout the day and weekly right here at KBLA?
So the listeners of this show are, welcome to join our community of leaders, learners, and listeners for A More Perfect Union, weekdays, Monday through Thursday from 4 to 6 p.m. Pacific. And so that means it's going to be a 6 to 8 p.m. Central Time. We welcome every single one of your listeners to come along for the ride.
Thank you, Dr. Corte. Listen, Dr. Mack, you couldn't make it this past week, and there is a reason why, a very good reason why. You and Dr. Q were in a foreign country, a country that is very much in the news, and that Secretary Marco Rubio was before the Congress, I believe, just yesterday, suggesting that the war in Iran is over, and he's now turning his attention to the humanitarian mission that you and Dr. Q were just on, and the learning expedition to which you had no power, no gas, and a lot of other, and no internet. Dr. Mack, share with us. We have about 2 minutes before we come forward, but we have the entire hour to discuss the significance of your trip. Dr. Mack.
I'm delighted to do that. I'll take a minute, and then Dr. Q might take a minute before we break. So we were invited by the Institute of the Black World, 21st Century, and the Pan-African Unity Dialogue to join a gathering of about a dozen and a half people representing a number of disciplines to listen and learn about the challenges and I would add opportunities that the people of Cuba are confronted with. And boy, did we learn a great deal. Dr. Q, you want to give your intro on how you saw things?
Yeah, I mean, we definitely saw a humanitarian crisis unfolding right before our very eyes. We drove past supermarkets that looked vacant, not because people don't need food, but because the supermarkets could only be open 2 to 3 hours a day because of the energy crisis. We drove past gas stations that looked vacant, not because people don't need gas, but because they can only be open about 2 to 3 hours a day. That's how much of a fuel crisis they're experiencing. We stumbled upon people who are asthmatic, where inhalers are becoming harder to come by. And so what I really hope that we can do over the course of this hour is to paint a picture for the American people so they understand what do we mean when we say a humanitarian crisis that is American made in Cuba right now. We still have power. And we're going to talk about that.
Dr. Q is my senior on KBLA Talk 1580, and that is exactly what we're going to do when we come forward. We're in the World House with Dr. Johnny Mack. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward, right here with Dr. Q and Dr. Mack in just a moment.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
You have something to say, and we want to hear it. KBLA Talk 1580 is engagement radio, not outrage radio. A place where your hopes, your frustrations, and your ideas are welcome 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Real talk, real people, real Los Angeles. KBLA Talk 1580, the station that sounds like the city looks. Tune in on your AM radio dial at 1580. Download our free KBLA 1580 app or listen live on our website at KBLA1580.com.
Unapologetically progressive.
Let's celebrate.
Y'all did it!
Loving each other, needing each other.
Hey, Los Angeles. KBLA Talk 1580 is turning 5, and we're celebrating in a big way.
Oh my God!
Join us Friday, June 19th, Juneteenth, 4 to 7 p.m. at the Beehive for our 5th anniversary bash and Juneteenth celebration. We're talking surprise celebrity guests, a special presentation, and a major announcement you will not want to miss.
I can't wait to hear it.
Plus, live music, dancing, games, and enough food and drink to keep the party going.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
Of course, you're welcome to bring your own picnic basket, blanket, and lawn chair. And the best part, it's completely free. But here's the thing. You've got to sign up in advance. Space is limited, so don't wait. Head to KBLA1580.com right now and lock in your spot. Friday, June 19th, the Beehive, KBLA Talk 1580. 5 years strong, and we're just getting started.
Happy anniversary, KBLA!
Yeah, man.
Do you owe $10,000 or more to the IRS like Mark?
I've been doing home remodeling for 30 plus years, but the economy crashed. I wound up losing my home, losing my job, and on top of that, owing the IRS a ton of money. I owed the IRS $114,000. It really, truly was the worst part of my life.
Then Mark found tax relief advocates.
On news radio, I heard about TRA, and I thought, what's the worst that could happen? So I picked up the phone and I called them. When it was all said and done, TRA settled my $114,000 debt for $100, and I'm telling you, I was ecstatic. Could not believe it. Would recommend TRA to anyone.
If you owe 10 or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to the IRS, don't lose hope. Do what Mark did and call TRA for a consultation.
But TRA did. They gave me a second chance, and I'm forever grateful.
Visit TRA.com or call 800-575-8935. 800-575-8935. That's 800-575-8935.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Folly, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. We are in the World House with Johnny Mack, and we have our very special guest and regular contributor here at KBLA, Dr. Nee Quartelai-Corte, Dr. Q, and Dr. Mack are joining us on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show and in the World House with Johnny Mack. Gentlemen, welcome forward.
Thank you, sir. Good to be here.
Johnny, let me start with you because in this moment, painting the picture for those who are on the 405, the 101, the 5, the 10, the 118, and the 110 in Los Angeles, I'm thinking in this moment when Michael Corleone is sitting on the rooftop in Havana, Cuba with other gangsters, he witnesses something in the streets of Cuba that gave him some pause, that his investment in Cuba might be threatened by the idea of a people's revolution to take over the island. And he raised questions with the other gangsters. Hey, how am I sure and how is my investment secure here when I just saw a car blow up, killing government officials a few minutes ago in the middle of downtown Havana? From that moment, all the way through the Bay of Pigs to the present, Fidel Castro has played a unique role in liberation movements, along with Che Guevara in South America and in Africa and Angola and South Africa, and helping free Nelson Mandela and supporting movements around the world that liberated our people. There's a history there that we have tended to identify with. And then, Dr. Q, there is this problem that we have in the present where the Cuban experiment, 90 miles from the coast of the United States of America, is profoundly threatened by the absence of trade and a relationship with the United States that respected the sovereignty of their government. Dr. Mack, if you could start with the history and bring us right up, Dr. Q, to where we are today and what we're trying to do about it, I'd sure appreciate it. Dr. Mack?
Well, Jesse, as you mentioned, this all began with the liberation movement in Cuba, and led by Fidel Castro and Che Guevara and others, and an attempt by the Cuban people, as they were understood then, to determine their own destination, determine the type of life they wanted, the quality of life they chose, determine the form of government they wanted, all based in their context, as they described it, on fundamental principles that we understand today of a peace and justful world. Of course, that was a time at the height of the Cold War and the struggle between the East and the West, or more specifically, the United States and Russia, on what form of government nation states should have. And having a country, a nation state, just 90 miles off the coast of the southeastern part of the United States was a real challenge for the United States. That led, of course, in 1962, I think it was, a U-2 plane noting that apparently someone was attempting to bring military hardware into Cuba that alarmed the United States, and that led to the Cuban Missile Crisis. And on goes that story. But in terms of the context that Dr. Q and I and others, what brought us to our mission just last week is what impact this more than 50, almost 60-year struggle. I mean, just imagine this. Can you imagine a 50 to 60-year struggle, a blockade that literally strangles the lifeblood of a people, limiting their quality of life, limiting their access to energy, their access to food, their access ultimately to self-determination. This is what Cubans, ordinary citizens like you and me, and more particularly like our listeners, have suffered as leaders, so-called, of nation states argue over who should make the decisions and what type of government they should have. And so ordinary citizens, ordinary Cubans have been suffering this challenge. That has led to where we are today. As Dr. Q indicated in his opening comments, grocery stores are closed, gas stations, there is no fuel. My impression, Dr. Q, is ordinary Cubans have literally been brought to their knees by this blockade of the basic essentials that any human needs in order to have any kind of modicum of an ordinary life. And that's where we find ourselves today.
Dr. Q, a blockade under any stretch of the imagination and definition is an act of war. Dr. Q, what did you experience? What did you witness? And please, in as graphic a detail as you possibly can, share with our mutual listeners what we're looking at here.
Well, I know I've never experienced economic warfare on the ground anywhere. And that's exactly what it is. And we need to call it what it is, economic warfare. And when we met with the Cuban president, the deputy foreign minister, the speaker of the National Assembly, in addition to having met with everyday Cuban people and civil society folks, we were able to follow the conversation and get a sense of not just the history, but the real-time impact that this was having on Cuba. I mean, look, the president of Cuba, in no uncertain terms, said, "Look, we've been under an American blockade for decades, right?" So that is not a new condition. But the fact that this administration, the Trump administration, is essentially bullying other nations from being able to trade with Cuba, to provide shipments to Cuba. We heard from medical students in Cuba, and as you know, Jesse, there are a number of folks from around the world that travel to Cuba to go to medical school. They pay for medical school, all 7 years of medical school. We had a chance to talk to two medical students, one from the Bronx, New York, the other from the Bay Area, and they reminded us, that part of the challenge that they experience is, the allowances that they receive from their home countries, from their families, have been disrupted because there are American financial institutions that are not carrying forward those transactions because of the blockade. And so we really want to offer your listeners and the folks that are streaming us live really a as much of a 360 view as we possibly can in terms of what does it look like and feel like to bear the brunt of economic warfare from the world superpower. That is what is taking place right now in Cuba. It's also worth noting that the Speaker of the National Assembly, an Afro-Cuban, had shared with us that there's a letter that they've sent to about 10 parliaments around the world asking for help, urging them to act in solidarity with Cuba to end this blockade. The president of Cuba reminded us that, look, the United States has always had differences with Cuba. Cuba is anti-capitalist, and they don't intend to change that anytime soon. That is what they believe. They still want to be neighborly. They still want to trade with the United States, right? They're still interested in welcoming Americans to do business with the United States, with the understanding of who they are and how they operate, and their right to sovereignty, their right to independence, their right to self-determination.
I don't know if I were in Congress, whether or not an amendment that I would have surely offered to not only stand as a strong rebuke to the president on the war powers question in Iran, I would have offered an amendment to end the blockade in Cuba, which is an act of war. But Dr. Q, you know more than most that the state of Florida is a factor in presidential electoral politics. You know how very powerful the Cuban lobby is domestically in the United States, and why those electoral votes do matter to both Democrats and Republicans. In fact, I think in 2008 and in 2012, Barack Obama won Florida twice as evidence of their political strength here in the United States. And yet Barack Obama was able to make some inroads on these questions, Dr. Q, that moved the idea of ending the economic blockades with Cuba out of the way, that Trump, in less than, I think, a week in his administration, re-implemented as soon as he possibly could, just to strangle the country and to strangle the people. That's right. Share with us your thoughts, Dr. Q.
That's right. That's right. And, a number of members of the U.S. emergency fact-finding delegation have called for exactly that, a policy of humanity, a policy that harkens back to our policy with Cuba under President Obama, calling for the normalization of relations with Cuba that was very narrow, right? There were a few dozen ways in which the Obama administration found the opportunity to engage with Cuba. And the Cuban people remember that. When we talk to Cubans on the ground, they remember the Obama days. They would love to go back to the Obama days. They remember it fondly. There was a sense of hope that they had about their future. No rose-colored glasses, but there was a sense of hope that they had. And so that is definitely something that we heard of. And it's also something that the Congressional Black Caucus is calling for. I want to remind your listeners that Congressional Black Caucus Chair Yvette Clarke sent a letter to President Trump, sent a letter to Secretary of State Marco Rubio, calling for them to end this blockade, calling for a return to policy under Obama.
I'm interested, Dr. Mack, did the question of the indictment of President Raul Castro, did it mean anything on the ground during the course of your delegation's tour and trip?
Well, it was certainly part of the backdrape for sure, Jesse. From the president, as Dr. Q has indicated, we met with the president of Cuba. From his own statements down to the common the everyday citizen on the island, that's a backdrape. There's a fear that at some point the United States will take what they call kinetic action in order to secure their will, let me say it that way. And so while there was no specific, to my recollection, Dr. Q, discussion about Maduro in that sense, it is a backdrape. It's an 800-pound gorilla in the room, so to speak.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I do remember the Cuban president shared, he said, when you look at America's aggression in places like Iran, Gaza, Venezuela, and also Cuba, he said the one common denominator that these situations have is that they are built on a lie. This is a president that said, and I quote, he talked about the American policy of white supremacy and fascism and genocide. That's how he framed our U.S. policy, not just in Cuba, but in other parts of the world. And so, his call to action for the American people was don't be gaslit. That's what the Cuban president said. Right. Don't be gaslit. He said, seek the truth, follow the truth. He said that Cuba wants to be neighborly and that Cuba comes in peace. And so, we know that there are folks out there who have lots of feelings about this Cuban government. I have lots of feelings about authoritarians and dictators at home and abroad. Hello. But our purpose was to go there to learn, to listen, to follow the facts and come back and share.
Yeah, you're doing more than that. You guys are actually educating us on what we don't know on the ground in Cuba. The people are suffering. They are cognizant of what we are living under here in the United States and sharing with you, and you are subsequently sharing with us that its implications, white supremacy, the anti-capitalist behavior, the interventionist nature of this administration has real costs and real complications abroad that are nothing short of devastating. Of course, Johnny and I normally on this program have a philosophical conversation about Dr. King. I am wondering in this moment, Johnny, but I know we'll have to deal with it when we come forward. What would Dr. King say? What would he do? That's a question that we have to wrap our minds around in this hour, because I suspect after the midterms and we begin to turn our attention to 2028, these Democrats are going to be turning their attention to Florida. And that does not necessarily mean liberation for the people of Cuba. It means whatever they can do to get the domestic vote to regain control of the White House. And that comes at great cost to the liberation of people in Cuba and South America and around the world. I'm Jesse Jackson Jr., listening to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show, honored in this hour to be with Johnny Mack and to have the host of A More Perfect Union right here at KBLA Talk 1580 with Jesse Jackson Jr. on our show. More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580.
It's afternoon drive time with Jesse Jackson Jr. Only on KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Amber Payton with BIN News Now. A measure to limit President Trump's Iran war powers passed the House with support from 4 Republicans. Black Florida Congressman Byron Donalds was not one of them, saying he believes Trump will settle the conflict soon.
He's not one for long-term military engagement.
The resolution is not expected to become law, even if it passes the Senate. Black Atlantic City, New Jersey Mayor Marty Small is filing a lawsuit against Atlantic County Prosecutor William Reynolds and his office. The complaint follows Small's acquittal last December on charges involving the alleged physical abuse of his teenage daughter. Small alleges Reynolds worked with certain political figures in an effort to push him out of the office. And the Justice Department is investigating Arizona State University's DEI practices. Officials say viral videos raise claims that ASU denied equal treatment to students based on race, color, or national origin. Get BIN News Now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Over 1,000 career strikeouts. He's a force on the mound. Join the Dodgers for Tyler Glasnow Starter Series Bobblehead Night, June 6th versus the Angels. The first 40,000 fans get an exclusive Tyler Glasnow bobblehead presented by Blue Shield. For tickets, visit Dodgers.com/promotions.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
The New York Knicks continue to put up some impressive numbers. 12 straight playoff wins, 7 straight on the road. In the final 2 minutes and 15 seconds Wednesday night in San Antonio, the Knicks held the Spurs scoreless. An 11-0 run. The Knicks pulled away late in the fourth quarter for a 105-95 win in Game 1 of the NBA Finals. The Knicks had not lost a game in the postseason since April 23rd, when they were down 2-1 to the Atlanta Hawks in the first round of the Eastern Conference playoffs. Knicks guard Jalen Brunson dropped 19 of his game-high 30 in the second half. Here's a couple of bad numbers for the Spurs. They made only 2 of 19 three-pointers in the second half. Spurs star Victor Wembanyama was 2 of 9 on threes. It's time for the Spurs coaching staff to tell the 7'4" Wembanyama to leave that three alone and do his work in the lane. Game 2 is Friday night in San Antonio. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Where the overlooked become unmissable, this is KBLA Talk 1580. In a world full of noise, one station keeps it real. KBLA Talk 1580, where the conversation goes deeper, the voices sound like yours, and the issues that matter most to our community take center stage. Progressive, powerful, unapologetically us. Whether you're driving through the city or tuning in from your home or office, join the public square. KBLA Talk 1580. Your home for talk that enlightens, encourages, and empowers. Listen live on our free KBLA 1580 app, on our website at KBLA1580.com, or on your radio dial at 1580 AM.
Unapologetically progressive.
All I need is one mic.
With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. It's high time that we say the quiet part out loud about what we consider a disgrace, an absolute disgrace to the people of South Los Angeles. Destination Crenshaw, or as I call it, Procrastination Crenshaw, was supposed to be a 1.3-mile celebration of Black Los Angeles. Pocket parks, commissioned art, a cultural corridor along Crenshaw Boulevard, stretching from our studios in Leimert Park down to Nipsey Hussle Square. It was set to complete in 2022. That's right, 2022. We are now in 2026, and the Crenshaw community is still waiting. A grand opening was announced for February 2024. That date passed with not a single artwork installed. Then we were promised that construction would be completed by the end of 2024. That date came and went. Our understanding is that as of last fall, the 8th Council District Office was still scrambling to raise additional monies just to restart the project, which has been paused again and again. But here's what makes my blood boil. City officials had the nerve to tell this community the delays are, quote, a necessary inconvenience, close quote. A necessary inconvenience? First of all, who are you talking to? Second, go tell that to the Black business owners who have been coping with construction chaos, breathing dust, enduring years of road closures and the scarcity of available parking, confronting unsanitary conditions, losing customers and revenue, all while the project they were promised still sits unfinished. They wouldn't let a project sit this long in any other part of this city. And for what it's worth, our elected official just happens to be the president of the LA City Council. Meanwhile, the city is laser focused on sprucing things up for the World Cup and the Olympics. Please, if this corridor were in Brentwood or Beverly Hills, it would have been completed on time, on budget, and on the cover of every magazine in town. The Crenshaw community deserves better. They deserve the truth, and they deserve what was promised to them. Now, right now, not when it's convenient, not when the cameras are rolling for the Olympics. Now, this isn't incompetence. This is a pattern. And at some point, neglect becomes a decision. With a KBLA Talk 1580 editorial, I'm Tavis Smiley. As always, we welcome your feedback.
You're listening to Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Volley drops the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to the me. KBLA Talk 1580.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. We're in the World House with Dr. Johnny Mack and a very special guest, Dr. Nee Quarterly-Quartey. Dr. Mack's research includes extensive study of Martin Luther King Jr.'s logic of nonviolence and the U.S. Civil Rights Movement. He explicates Dr. King's logic of nonviolence using King's call to restructure the social edifice, and particularly its triple evils of poverty, racism, and militarism, with a revolution of values that is effected through peaceable power. Dr. Nee Quarterly-Quartey is the White House correspondent for A More Perfect Union radio talk show here at KBLA Talk 1580. Before returning to his passion for political journalism for almost 2 decades, Dr. Quartey had developed his expertise in national affairs by being actively engaged in policy advocacy efforts on issues ranging from civil and human rights to childhood obesity and to senior issues. Born into a Ghanaian American family, Dr. Quartey holds a doctoral degree in organizational leadership and a master's degree in social entrepreneurship and change from Pepperdine University, making him, from my perspective, the most overqualified person at KBLA Talk 1580. He should be a professor somewhere teaching, which he is. Dr. Q, welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. And as always, Johnny, welcome forward to the show.
Thanks, Jesse. Good to be here.
Johnny, before I get to the thank you, Dr. Q. Before I get to the philosophical question of Dr. King, Dr. Q, Cuba historically responsible for supporting liberation movements all over South America, all throughout the Caribbean, essentially Western Sub-Saharan Africa as well. The role that Cuba has played in our liberation struggle has been nothing short of legendary. Strangling Cuba is to strangle the story of liberation in our continent and in our world in a real sense, Dr. Q.
Yes, and Jesse, just while we've been on the air, I see a little bit of breaking news related to Cuba. Bloomberg reporting that the U.S. sanctions Cuba's president as Trump pushes harder for change. The U.S. sanctioned Cuban President Miguel Diaz-Canel and members of his family, ratcheting up pressure on the communist government even further. I'm not sure if the president is live listening to us right now, and if this is perhaps in response to our fact-finding mission on the ground. But this is just a reminder that, this U.S. aggression, this conflict is not letting up anytime soon. It's getting worse, to the point that you made before the break. After 2026, folks are going to be locked in, focused on the 2028 election. And we all know what role Florida plays, particularly South Florida, where there's a robust Cuban community, Cuban American community. And so lots of work that we need to get into. And there's a lot at stake. There's a lot at stake because, to the point you made earlier, Cuba plays a huge role in supporting the healthcare of folks outside of Cuba, South America, throughout the Caribbean, even parts of Africa. The Cuban government has deployed doctors around the world to be a part of the emergency response situations, disaster relief situations. We're talking about the Ebola virus that is also worsening. Well, there are Cuban doctors that are aiding and supporting in those efforts as well. And, Jesse, you should know that when we were on the ground in Cuba, we visited a medical school. And one of the issues that came up, that was one of the issues that was raised, was related to something that U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio has been saying. He's been accusing the Cuban government of exploiting these doctors, of sending them to places around the world and not paying them. And there was a director from the medical school that responded to that and said, that's just not true. He said, first of all, these doctors volunteer. They volunteer for these medical tours that they go on. And by the way, let's also point out that they've already received 7 years of a free medical school education. And so a lot of them see it as paying it forward, not as being exploited. And so I think it was important to inject that perspective into the conversation, because if we let U.S. Secretary Marco Rubio tell it, the Cuban government are pimping out doctors in the Cuban medical schools.
And that's something, I find it fascinating, Dr. Mack, that the U.S. government is sanctioning Cuban leadership for ideological reasons, but that no governments around the world are sanctioning Trump and the Trump family for corruption reasons, including but not limited to their desires for critical resource minerals, as well as patents and trademarks in various parts of the world, using official government resources to do personal business that include, but not limited to, never having to pay taxes or be audited ever again if you don't pay taxes. I find that particularly deeply troubling, and I appreciate you breaking that story for us right here on KBLA Talk 1580. As we speak, breaking news: the President of the United States, the administration, and the Secretary of State have now sanctioned the government and the president, more specifically, of Cuba, not Raul Castro, who was indicted, but the present sitting president of that country sanctioned him, which, at one level or another, it is a behavior that no one ever uses against the president of the United States. And the case certainly could be made in this moment that the United States government and its leading family could be sanctioned as well. Dr. Mack, let me move this question to the philosophical question of geopolitically locate us on where Dr. King would have us in this time, in this moment, if you can, and in this space.
Well, I'm happy to, Jesse. And just for the record, this is more than philosophical. King, yes, indeed, was, quite the thinker. But he was also quite practical. Recall, Jesse, that in his what's commonly called the Vietnam speech, that is a time to break silence, King very practically describes the U.S. as the greatest purveyor of violence. That's not just philosophical; that's very practical.
That's true. Absolutely.
So he calls for this revolution of values, of course. But King ultimately calls violence by its name. And so a blockade that denies 10 million people the energy that they need to operate daily, to live normal daily lives that we all expect to live. That's economic violence. And so understanding violence in a very practical way, that's not philosophical. That has a profound impact on the day in and day out lives of ordinary citizens of Cuba. And so King would call out the blockade as being a violent effort for the United States to impose its will on another people. And so, we have to call violence by its name. So poverty is a form of violence. Racism is a form of violence. And militarism, they are all forms of violence, not just philosophical, ideological concepts. They have a very practical impact on the daily lives. And so King would call out these forms of violence that are being imposed on Cuba and other nation states around the world at the will of the United States of America.
So in this moment, the triple evils actually knock at the door of Cuba: racism, militarism, all of it is right there.
Unquestionably, it is a case study par excellence.
And the revolution of values is our behavior. It's about our behavior, not about changing their behavior, but about changing our own.
It certainly is a call to all of us. Our own values seem to impose these forms of violence as ordinary human nature. They are not. They are choices. They are choices that we make in order to impose our will, not only here domestically, but globally.
We'll have some concluding thoughts when we come forward on KBLA from Dr. Q, as well as Dr. Johnny Mack. I want to know how we can support both of their works. Dr. Q will share with us how we can listen to his show and how we can support Johnny Mack's work in the World House. More on KBLA Talk 1580 when we come forward.
Treatment, get checked for infections and tuberculosis. Tell your doctor about any flu-like symptoms or vaccines. Liver problems leading to hospitalization may occur when treated for Crohn's or ulcerative colitis.
Control is everything to me.
Ask your doctor about Skyrizi, the #1 prescribed biologic in Crohn's and ulcerative colitis combined. Learn more at skyrizi.com or 1-866-SKYRIZI.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
KBLA Talk 1580, connecting you with services and solutions. These are hard times for housing in America. Too many in our community face barriers to safe housing, behavioral health care, and affirming spaces for healing, particularly those impacted by poverty and stigma or incarceration. Rooted in South LA, Ahmad supports impacted communities through housing, wellness, and leadership development. Ahmad provides culturally responsive, peer-led support from transitional housing and mental health services to leadership development and youth empowerment. They offer safe, affirming houses for youth, transgender women, and formerly incarcerated individuals. Therapy and peer support with a focus on healing trauma in Black communities. HIV prevention and care, free testing, education, and wraparound services for whole person wellness. Standing in the gap with health, housing, and hope. Reach out to Ahmad Institute at 323-569-1610. That's 323-569-1610. Or visit amaad.org. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Knock, knock, Capital One Bank guy.
Wow, Charles Barkley?
I just moved into the neighborhood. Can I borrow some Wi-Fi?
Sure, Chuck. That's what the Capital One Cafe is here for. Open 7 days a week.
Oh, can I use your ATM? My dog walker only takes cash.
Anything for a neighbor.
Can I try the catchphrase?
Sure, take it for a spin.
There's no fees or minimums on Capital One checking accounts.
Nice, Chuck. I'll take it from here. Capital One. What's in your wallet?
Terms apply. Visit CapitalOne.com/bank guide for details. Capital One and a member FDIC.
Now back to more of Jesse Jackson Jr. on KBLA Talk 1580.
The Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. 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 King Quality, drop the beat. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. Come on and talk with me. Come on and listen to me. KBLA Talk 1580. Download the app.
I'm Jesse Jackson Jr. Welcome forward to the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Tomorrow, lighting it up right here on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show will be none other than the president and CEO of the Rainbow Push Coalition, my brother, Yusuf Jackson. Going to check in with him, nearing and closing in on his quarter-year leadership of the National Rainbow Push Coalition, as well as Bishop Joseph Tolton will be joining us on the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show. But in this hour, I am particularly grateful that the World's House with Dr. Johnny Mack is returning along with Dr. Q from an international humanitarian effort and now an education campaign here in the United States to what's going on the tiny island of Cuba. Very grateful for Dr. Mack and his leadership, and of course, the continued leadership of Dr. Q on all of these issues as our White House correspondent at KBLA Talk 1580. Dr. Mack, how can we support your work?
Thanks for asking, Jesse. Our website is just 4 words, The World House Project. Again, our website is theworldhouseproject.org. You go there and you can learn more about our work, and you can make a tax-deductible contribution.
Thank you, Johnny. Dr. Q, how can we support your work right here at KBLA? And can you share with us some of the books that you've authored as well?
Sure. Well, I mean, I think this is a great time for us to do a look back and look forward. I've been thinking a lot about the state of our solidarity politics and what kind of solidarity politic do we need to co-create in order to bring about the kind of future that's going to afford us the humanity and the dignity that we all deserve, that people deserve across the United States, that the people of Cuba deserve, that people of conscience around the world deserve. And so go ahead and pick up my book, Kamala, The Motherland and Me. There's plenty to sink your teeth into. Not just about that story trip to the motherland, but some of the history that undergirds it. And we're going to keep you current on A More Perfect Union. And so go ahead and subscribe to A More Perfect Union podcast powered by KBLA. That way you won't miss some of our most memorable conversations. And you get to have us with you everywhere you go.
I appreciate you, Dr. Q, and I certainly appreciate you, Johnny. Johnny, let me do something different. Let me allow both of you an opportunity for a closing word of hope in light of this international trip that you took. Dr. Q, both of you have seen human suffering. You've been here in the United States, but now you've seen what the United States is capable of doing outside of our nation. It's taken decades to develop a reputation through successive administrations. These administrations are literally ambassadors and representatives of the American people on the ground. I do have a final question for you as you both prepare your words of hope. How do people in foreign countries receive us? I guess that's a loaded question because they are familiar with the struggle of Black Americans here in the United States, but we also go there as Americans. Why don't I start with Dr. Q? Dr. Q, how are they receiving us?
I can say that based on our experience in Cuba, we were very well received. I felt very welcome. There wasn't a moment where I didn't feel safe. The Cuban people understand they understand the delta between our government and the people. And I think we too understand the delta sometimes between the Cuban government and the people. And so that was clear to me. At times it was a little disorienting because given the kind of suffering that's happening in the name of the American people, to have been embraced with so much warmth from folks who are experiencing not just inconvenience but suffering. That was an experience that will never leave me.
Not just inconvenience, but suffering. Dr. Mack?
Yeah, I can just second everything that Dr. Q just said. I had the same experience in Cuba, and I'll be in Liberia and then Ghana in the next couple of weeks. And I mentioned those two because in my experience on the African continent and throughout the globe, particularly African Americans are generally received well around the globe, particularly in the southern half of the global hemisphere. People tend to identify with our struggle as we identify with theirs. And so, again, I would second all that Dr. Q has said on that issue.
I want to give a special shout out in this moment. We have about 3 minutes before we come forward, but a very special shout out to Dr. Ron Daniels. I have every reason to believe he was on that trip because he tried to get me to go. I'm not so sure it would have worked out without internet and doing our show back here in the United States. But I'm grateful for his leadership, and I'm grateful for the delegation that went. And I'm so grateful that all of you have come home safely. Dr. Mack, some closing thoughts, a word of hope?
I'll be very quick. You mentioned, of course, our good friend and example, Dr. Ron Daniels, who organized this trip. There were others, James Early, Denise Rolark, Julianne Malveaux. These are some of the, my peers in many ways. But I really want to focus on that younger contingency that was part of our trip as my word of hope. Louis Romaine of the Justice Crew, Tandiwe of Abdullah of Black Lives Matter, Kim Pools of Teaching Artists Institute, and particularly my good friend Ni Quartele Corte. If he were not on this show, Jesse, I would tell you I've learned so much from this young brother, and there's great hope for us as a people and for our nation because of people like Dr. Q and those others that I've just mentioned. I have great hope.
Dr. Q is absolutely the truth. Dr. Q, we have about 1 minute and 45 seconds. You know how to end these shows better than I do. Dr. Q, your word of hope for our listeners.
I have great hope because of great leaders and great minds like that of Dr. Ron Daniels, that of Dr. Johnny Mack, and so many others, James Early. I learned so much. I mean, I had a chance to geek out with folks who are not new to this, but are true to this. And true to this across continents, across waters, across communities. And so I have been fed by this experience, and my job is to help feed others. And that's what we do as information warriors through the work that we do. That is a part of the tradition of the Black press. And I'm so proud to be a part of this tradition. And that's what gives me hope. It's because, I can look to the past and holding some radical imagination about the future, I can move forward boldly, confidently, and hopefully courageously.
Dr. Q, can I lean on you to take us out? You know this better than I do.
You've been listening to and streaming the Jesse Jackson Jr. Show on KBLA Talk 1580. Our thanks to Jesse Jackson Jr., our distinguished host, to our executive producer, Gina Towns, and the entire crew, and our guest, Dr. Johnny J. Mack. We love you, Jesse Jackson Jr., and you can't do anything about it.
More when we come forward on KBLA Talk 1580. Thank you, guys. Appreciate you being here.